We go back with Avril Lavigne when she was shy. With producer engineer Mark Howard, I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music. Avril Lavigne. I have two of my colleagues who interviewed her, and they said, she's fun to interview. She's a little bratty. She's fun to interview, though. What was your experience like with Avril?
Well, she was 16 or 15, or she was really young. And so I got a call from my management that her production team had all programmed drums and bass, all kinds on the record, and they wanted real drums. So they wanted me to record her first three hit songs, Complicated, Skater Boy, and then one other one, I can't remember. So she came in with that production team. And so I brought my friend, who's a really amazing drummer, Victor Andruzzo, and he played the drums, and we had a different bass player. I never knew who he was, but yeah, so I recorded all, and she was just shy. She would just sit there in the chair, and so, but she did some vocals and stuff like that. That sounded great, and so, but I didn't know who she was, or she was just some little girl trying to make a record, and with this thing, next thing you know, like, she's the biggest thing since sliced cheese, It's like, and so it was kind of cool. And so we hit it off. And I recently just saw her, I guess, at the last Junos, and I said, "Do you remember me? That big, huge villa in Hollywood?" She goes, "That was you." I said, "Yeah." And so it was it was good. And she remembered who I was, but then I was quickly detained by her security people. "That's enough. Get out. You come on out." I was like, "But I know." Pull me away. But yeah.
Canadian Christmas. What was Christmas like for you growing up? Any great albums you got for Christmas? Any anecdotal Christmas story you want to give me? Canadian Christmas story.
Canadian Christmas. Well, yeah, it was a snowy Christmas up there in Canada. Yeah. Well, I think my first record was Sonny and Cher. I was a little kid, I didn't know. And so, yeah, that's the first record I got. But my brother and sister were like 10 years older than me. So I would end up listening to, what they were listening to. And so it was like, my teenage years became like Led Zeppelin and the Stones, but they were in a different generation 10 years before me. And they were listening to like Johnny Winters and who else? What are the records? They left me
come out at night.
Yeah. So it was all that stuff, and and then but I think so Frankenstein, you remember that track?
That's the album.
That was their period, and so, but I grew up with that also, so that was kind of cool, and I got to listen to all those great records that they had. But then as a teenager, then it shifted to the Stooges, and then with Iggy, and then Led Zeppelin, The Who, all the killer, rock bands. And so I'm more of a rock kind of kid that grew up and through that rock.
Links to both of Mark Howard's books are in the description where you can pick them up. One is the storybook, basically telling the stories about working with all the greats: Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, Bob Dylan, Tom Waits, Tragically Hip, and so many more. So we'll have links to both books. Like I said, the first one's the storybook. The second one is basically the pictures book. We've showed you some pictures in the videos. Links to that and a lot more. If you want to help the channel, there are links. Subscribe. Check out our podcast. It's a fairly new podcast. It's doing really, really well, and you can hear a lot of our full interviews on our podcast. Share our videos and podcasts, and like, comment. We'd appreciate that. I'm John Beaudin. This is Rock History Music. Take care of yourself.